Hello, good morning, everyone. I'm not sure how many people are watching. So if you're watching, just comment and say hi in the comment section, so I know you are there. Today is the second webcast of our automated testing series. This today I'm going to talk about how to write automated tests for your React application. So how I'm going to work is I'll show you some example. I'll walk through them, and then I also give you the solutions how to do that. So first of all, let me show you the application we are going to test today. So the application that we're going to test today is a sample e-commerce application. It's called Shopee. So it's a typical e-commerce. We have homepage with a list of infinite loading products, and then you can click into it, then you can see a particular products. And then also we support features like login and etc. So this will be our code base. So I'm going to share in the comment section the link to the code base, so you can go to check that out if you cannot really see my screen later. So the first link I share is the branch where the starting point of today's workshop, and then the second link I'm post there will be the final solution by the end of this webcast. Hopefully, if there's no technical issue. Okay. So this application, let me slightly walk through the project structure. So we have source folder. Then inside that we have components. Then we have which is all our UI components. Then we have hooks, which is all our custom hooks. Then we have lib, which is all the utilities. Then we have modules, which is the way we organize modules. We have authentication modules, we have products module, and then finally we have pages, which are all the pages in this application. And then service, which is far out at the moment. So this project, we use Create React. So what is Create React? I hopefully everyone know about Create React. It's just a way, like a common tools people use to build React nowadays. It abstract away many manual configuration like Webpack, Pebble, and Jest as well. So today we're not going to talk about Create React. I just let you know my setup is using Create React. So if you are not using Create React, you may need to configure things yourself. So when talk about testing, under the hood, Create React is using another library from Facebook, which is called Jest. So Jest is a testing framework that includes, I can say, like most of the things that you need when you write JavaScript tests, especially writing tests for React. So if you're not using Create React, you need to check out the Jest and see how to install it. So so now we are going to write our first test now. So I'm going to write a test for my button component. Okay. So I believe your app should have also a button components. So the button components here do nothing much. Maybe there's quite a few codes here, but eventually the goal of this button component is to render a button elements in your DOM, and then by applying the correct CSS class. Okay, there's not much logic here. So we're going to create a test for this button component. But before I create it, I want to show you how to run a test in Create React. So you just run npm script test. Okay, so you under the hood you run a React script test. which is actually inside our package JSON. You will see this test script. So this what is running. So under the hood, it will run Jest. So now test file related to the file change since last commit. Then we have a few options. So let me try to run all tests. So I have a test already, and then now it runs, and it should pass. Okay, so it passed. So this test, when we look at this app.test.js, is nothing. It just expect true to be true. Okay, I like to call this canary test. So what is the purpose of this test? Is I want to make sure my setup of my test framework is correct. So actually, if you configure your Jest manually, I recommend you to add this test into your test suites, so that if this test pass, there's nothing wrong with your test. It's just there's problem on your setup itself. So why is this very important? Because many times when we write tests, we kind of want to simulate the scenarios, and then when your test fails, there's two possible reasons that it fails. First is your test really show you some bug. Another reason is your setup has problem. So this canary test is a way for you to tell, hey, there's nothing wrong with my setup. So when there's error, it should be the test itself. And then second thing I want to explain here is so when you run tests, right, there's this test and aspect. So what are these? So these are the global utility that Jest injected for you. So I think if you ever write any test, this is very familiar. But if you're not familiar, I'll have another next webcast that's talk about like Jest. Like I just focus on Jest and all those utilities. So another thing I want to mention is that how Jest know, hey, this app.test.js is a test. It's not your source code. So it's configurable, but by default, how Jest know whether this is a test and not a source code is you based on your file name convention. So if you have something that looks like .test.js, or is something like .spec.js or .jsx or .ts or .tsx, so Jest will know, hey, this is a test file. So you will run it as a test. So that's how you know app.test.js is a test. So now we want to start writing tests for our button component. So I'm going to create a file called button.test.jsx. Okay. So you can see straight away, once I create this file, Jest will know, hey, this match the file name convention. So it is a test. But you can see it fails because you must contain at least one test. So let's create one test. Okay. So now it passed because it does nothing. So how I'm going to test this button component. Of course, I need to import the button component, and then this is where I want to write my test. So how to write a test for a React component? So if you are new to writing React component test, you think like, hey, let's look at this button. This button seems like a function. Let's call the function. Okay. But that's not the way we should test a React component, because one very important principle of testing is you should test your code based on the way it is being used. Okay, so if this button component, when you use it, you don't call it, then you shouldn't call it also. So now think about how do you use a React component? You write JSX, right? So that's also the way we're going to test here. Okay, we are going to write a JSX, okay, and then, well, let's say I'm calling hi. So when we're writing JSX, then we know we need to actually import React. Because JSX under the hood is just convert to create React. Sorry, React create element. So, but we have a JSX, but what does this even mean? We have JSX. How do we test it? So now we need to go back a bit on the React fundamentals. When you have JSX, but you want to render in your HTML, how does that even happening? Well, you know, all React application, we always have this index.js where we have this line of code. DOM render some JSX document get element by ID root. Okay, so what does this means? This means is you have a JSX, okay, you put as a first parameter to this ROM render, and the second parameter is something some HTML element that you want React DOM to render to. So now you look at here, hey, React DOM dot get element by ID root. So we are getting an element from our HTML that has the ID root, but where is this? Okay, so if you follow the normal convention, you will see you have a HTML file which you will have this ID. So technically, how the whole flow works is when your index.js file run, it will document get element by ID. You'll get this element, and then you'll pass it to a second parameter to the React DOM render, and then so that's whole your whole React application start. So similarly, now we have JSX. Now we want to render it. We need to do the same thing. So I need to also import React DOM this file. And then I need to React DOM render. And then I need to pass document get element by ID something, right? But now we are in Jest. We are in this environment that Jest has created. So how can I have an element in here? Well, one thing that Jest actually help us to do is actually Jest it includes like a virtual DOM environment for us, which is using a library called Jest DOM, so that in this file you actually can do like document. I can do like console log document dot body. Okay, let's have a look. Okay, we have a HTML body element. So so this JS DOM is like it is a DOM. Normally we have a DOM which run in browser, but JS DOM is purely in JavaScript. The purpose of JS DOM is to support features like Jest, where you no need to like install another Chrome. You just need to like install some JavaScript, then it runs and it works almost just like a DOM. There are a few edge cases, but for testing purposes, this is good enough. So now since we are in a like kind of like a DOM DOM environment, we can actually do all the things we can do in DOM. So in DOM, we can also like document create element, right? So we can actually now we can create a div. And then so here React DOM render, instead of like, hey, I find an element in my HTML, I just pass this div into my React DOM render. Okay, so now the test pass. But how do I verify that it's actually working? Well, because this is the div is actually a HTML element, so we have all the methods that we have, right? So I can actually create a click selector button. Then I still can get the buttons. So let us console log this thing. Ta-da! So there's something there. Okay. So to show you that it actually working, let us move this query selector before we do a red DOM render. And then we get now. Okay, so technically before we red DOM render, then we get a now, but after red DOM render, we will actually get an actual button elements. Okay, so how I'm going to do a test, because test there's always 3 steps. We call it setup, act, and assert, which means you need to prepare your test, and then you run the test, and then finally you verify your test is working. So this is like setup, the create element. The render is like our act now, and then we miss a step. We need to make sure the code is actually working. So button element is a element that actually what it does is, as I told you, it is just running the render some button, and then with some correct CSS class. So one of the thing it helps is you can pass a color props, then it will run it will generate the correct CSS class. Let me pass, like, let's say color.primary. Okay. Okay. It's too long, so we're going to like console log class name. Okay, class name is like a HTML element property. All HTML element has it, so I can just get the class name property, so I can see all this. Okay, inline block router bg blue. So I this is the correct one. I manually go to button and see if my color is primary. You will go look up the color classes color. So color classes primary, I have this BG blue 500, text gray 100, shadow, which is all there. So yeah, so this is a most basic React test that you can write. But realize, hey, we have these manual things we need to write. We need to write create a div, and then we need to render and then check everything. Okay, which is kind of tedious, because this is some standard things we need to do for every single React elements. That's why there's a abstraction that helps us to do all this. It's called React testing library. So React testing library, this is the links I'm going to share with you. So it's a library that actually set up all those environment for us, and then a few utilities to make our React test much simpler. So I'm going to import from this React testing library. Okay. So the most important is a render. The second thing is a screen. So the render utility that provided by this React testing library is it abstract away all this setup, so you can just call render. Okay. So you no longer need to create your div yourself. You just call render and provide your React JSX. And then second thing it give you is a screen. So this screen is all the utility that help you to do the assertion and debugging of your tests. So the one that I use most often is the screen.debug. So let's just save and see what it does. Okay, so screen.debug actually it will actually debug it will show all your HTML inside your console. So this is very handy when you write tests, because the thing about writing tests in an environment in Jest is that it is virtual. There's no UI for you to see. So this screen.debug actually show your HTML, so you can go to manually inspect, hey, what is missing, what is not expected. So then you can start try to fix your test. Okay. One thing I realized is this test is getting a bit annoying because every time I change something, right, it actually run both tests, which is the app.test.js and this button.test.js. So now my app Just is very simple, but you can imagine that's it's very heavy. So the good thing about Jest, right, is it actually give you utility for those common use case. For now, I can do like I type P. P means pattern. So I can actually write a pattern of the test I want to run. So because I don't want to run app.test.js, I only want to run button.test.js, I just type button. So now here it says, hey, this pattern only match one files. So I click button. Now it only run this particular file. Okay. So now it make our test run much faster. So yeah, now we render our button and then it's actually working. So now previously we do the query selector. Okay. So with this React testing library, what do we do? Well, we can actually do the same thing. We can actually do like document query selector button. Okay, we'll still get the button, but this screen actually gives us some query that make these things much easier. So it has many this dot get something by something. So we can get by text hi. Okay, then get by text hi, and then so here we can get the button, and now we can do like X. We can console log button class name. So yeah, console log button class name, we get this. So we can actually do an assertion. Assertion in Jest we use called aspect class name to be, okay, we can to be this line of string, right? I can copy paste. No, the copy paste doesn't work. But never mind. I'm not going to copy paste because now you realize you copy paste here, but it is kind of like pointless, right? Since you're copy paste, why don't you just tell just say, hey, what the things I'm console log now, can you please just put it here? Okay. So the cool thing is Jest actually can help you to do this. So you get a class name from button, so you get a string, right? You can just tell Jest, hey, just snapshot this. So they have this special assertion called to match inline snapshot. So let me run it. Okay. So now actually what Jest would do is it actually get the value and it update your test. So I no need to manually copy paste. And then the next time the Jest run, now it pass. Yeah, let me remove the debug. Yeah, so now the test pass. Okay. So how does it works is the first time you run this to match inline snapshot, Jest will see do you pass any string into into this function. If there's nothing passed, Jest will know, hey, there's nothing has been snapshot yet. So you will actually put the value there. Okay. So because class name is equal to this, then you put the value here. And then the next time it runs, you check, hey, there's already a string. So we are not going to create a new snapshot. We are going to check the current value, is it same with the snapshot value? So now since these two is the same, so the Jest will know, hey, this pass. Okay, so this is a very handy assertion that's provided by Jest. So this is our first test. As you can see, right, there's nothing much here because actually we are just checking the CSS class. So if you feel this is quite useless, you are right. This is really quite useless because it doesn't verify much thing. I just want to show you like how simple it can go. But normally I rarely write this kind of test. Okay, the test I write actually I will at least verify some behavior, not checking CSS class. So now we're going to check write test for a component with behavior. So is this component called alert? Okay, there are quite a few codes here, but the key point to verify here is this this logic set show, and then we can set show to false. So the logic in this component is you can put an alert, and then you can say this alert is dismissible. So if it's dismissible, then it will show a button that your user can click and then hide this alert. Okay, let's write a test to verify this behavior. So similarly, I want to create a test. I just follow the convention .test.js or .jsx. Okay, you can see even though I have a alert.test.js, our just run the button test because we have a button filter. So now I'm going to change the filter. I type P again, and then now I type alert, and then I enter. Now it run the test for this. Again, this will fails because we don't have test yet. So I'm going to import all the thing I need, and of course I'm going to import our alert component. Okay, test alert. And the alert is some content. Let's say this is important. Okay, it pass. But we have some error message, fail prop type check. The color is marked as required. So this is because in alert we have some prop type checking. So we have this prop type and we have color, so it should be all either of this. Let me just put a danger color. So it's very important that you check the console output of your test because you don't want the real this kind of error message like confuse you with the real failure. So just now I don't pass color is actually an invalid use case. So yeah, your test should test the valid use case and make sure there's nothing's breaking instead of like testing the use case that you are not supposed to support. So now it passed. So similarly, all the tests we just debug. Okay, so this is like a console log version of writing tests. So yeah, yay, this is important is showing. So now we want to do an assertion, right? So let do assertion screen get by tag. This is important to. So we want to make sure it is there, right? So let's say to be not to be now. Okay, I can see quite a few of you watching. If you have any question, please just ask in the comments. So now this pass. Okay, we expect get by text not to be down. But here we have some duplication, right? And it's next time people see this code, right, they may not know what we are doing. So it's better that we this is important to as a string. Okay, so I'm going to move this variable. So here I'm going to render it, message, and get by text. I'm going to show it. Okay. Okay, so it passed and our test is clear. Okay, we have message here, and by default your alert should show. Then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to, just like I say, I want to close the alert. I want to dismiss it. But let's look at our console here. We actually don't have a dismiss button. Okay, the reason because alert, you need to pass the dismissible dismissible props, only it will show the button. So let me do that. Going to pass dismissible. Okay, save. Okay, now, okay, so now the button is there. So now we want to get this button. Okay, I want to get this button, the close button. So how do we get this close button? Okay, just now we can use this get by text, the text content. But what is the text content of this close button? Well, it's an X. Okay, so I can do like screen get by text X, and then I can get the button. But I don't want to do that because the X here is just the current implementation of how the button looks like. In future, I may replace it with a SVG icon. Okay, so using get by text X is not very good because in future it's easy to break. So what I'm going to do is our close button actually have this area label. Okay, so area label is the things is a HTML properties for the screen reader, which is the blind people that are using your site. So this React testing library actually it can allow you to get using those area label. You can get by label text close. Okay. So here we can get the close button. Close button. Okay. Let me console log this close button. Okay, yes, the button is there. So now what I want to do is I want to simulate clicking this button. So to clicking this button, React testing library actually it gives you a utility called fireEvent. So this fireEvent you can simulate your user interaction. So what we want to do is we want to click this close button. So instead of manually get a close button, I'm putting a variable. I'm just going to do this fireEvent click this close button. Okay. So we click the close button. Now you see, hey, there's nothing there anymore. Okay, our alert is closed. But I want to assert this actually happens in my test. Okay, so how do I assert? Well, previously we assert it not to be down. Now I'm going to assert it to be now. Okay, let's see how it goes. So there's some error. Let's see what's the error. The error say I'm able to find an element with the text. This is important. Okay, so apparently what happened is when you call get by text and you give a string, when this utility cannot find the element, what it does is it will throw you an error straight away. Okay, you may ask, hey, why it throws me error? Why don't it return a null to me? The reason is in a test, right, it's very important for the test framework or utility to fail as soon as possible, so it's easy to debug. So now when it get by text, it doesn't find anything. It straight away throw error so that you know that, hey, this operation fails. Instead of it giving you a null and then you try to call something on the null, and then you'll get error in some other place in your test, which will make your debugging even harder. So it's intentional. So, but what do we do now that we want to really assert something is shouldn't be there? So the thing about React testing library is other than this get by something, it has another set of query which is called query by something. So we can do query by text. Okay, it has exact the same behavior like get by text, except when it gets nothing, it will not throw error. It will return you a null. So now I can use this utility, screen query by text to be null, and then my test is passed. Okay. So now we actually complete a React test that actually verify behavior. Okay, we render it. Then after that, we use the fireEvent click or later we'll show other fireEvent something else that simulate a user behavior, and then after that we do our final assertion. Okay. So this is our second test. The third test today I'm going to show you is a component that makes some API calls. So let's look at how the page looks like first. So this is my Shopee application. You scroll all the way to the bottom, we have a career page. Okay, we have a career page. So this is my career page. My career page, how it works is after I load the career page, then it will make the API call to get this list of jobs posting in this site. So I'm going to test this, which has API application, and this is a very common in React. So the component for that application is inside the all jobs. So it's this file. So we can look at this all jobs is actually it has a state which is like by default is busy. Then it has state which is store all the jobs. Then after that you have a use effect. They will make the API calls, and then after that it will store the values in the state, and then after that it will render it. So let's write a test for this. The file all jobs dot test dot jsx. Then change my Jest filter. I'm going to filter all jobs. So you run this file. Okay. Import all the utility I need. Import this all jobs. Okay. Test all jobs. Render all jobs. And then screen dot. Okay, so you have we see there's something there, there's some circle, there's a spinner, because our all jobs by default is busy, then it will show some spinner. So this is what it's showing. But now we have API calls, right? We have this API calls, which we try to check is actually making an API calls to our REST endpoint. So how do we do that? So you can, first option is you can actually allow it to make the API calls, and then you need to make sure your test actually, when you run this test, your API service is actually ready. There's one way to do it, but it will be very flaky because your API calls may be slow, your server service may not be available. So in this case, is a very valid use case that we use a mock. So I want to mock these API calls. Okay, so how I'm going to mock this is instead of mocking like, hey, mocking all my API calls, intercept it, and return something else. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to mock this whole file. I'm going to change the get jobs function into something else. Okay. So it used to be very hard to set up this kind of thing, but just make it very simple. You want to mock the file. Let's just import the file first. Import career.service. So the thing we want to mock is get jobs. Okay, let's rename it. So it's a very easy. So I want to mock this, but now I have a mock. For me to mock it, I need to call this function, just mock. And then you need to pass where is this thing you want to mock. So because it is at the path of career.services, I'm going to copy this and then I pass it. So when you do this, what Jest would do is it will check, hey, is there a file there? So if there's a file there, Jest will actually look inside the file, see, hey, what are the functions that has been exported in the files? And then I'm going to mock all of them. I'm going to replace them. So what Jest replace them? Just replace them with a mock function. So a mock function is something that you can actually change how it works. So we have a get job mocks. I can actually call this special function in Jest mock function. is called mock implementation. I'm going to only there are many utility here lah. You can call mock implementation. You can call mock implementation once. There are many functions you can just refer to the Jest docs. But what we're going to do is we want to mock it only once because we expect our all jobs only call it once, and we want to mock it with something else. So what we want to mock it. So in order for me to know what to mock, I need to know what is my all jobs expecting. So look at my all jobs. It is expecting the get jobs to actually return a promise. And then this promise actually should return a list of jobs that we can actually save in state. So it should be an array. And then this array, it can be used to render in the list. So it's array.map. Then this list should have a title and then you have an ID. So now I know what my all job is expecting. What I'm going to do is I create the mock jobs data. So you want to be an array, you want to have an ID, then you want to have a title. Okay. So to make it more real life, I'm going to put 2. So just now I say all jobs expecting the get job returns a promise, right? That will the promise which will resolve to this array. So what we're going to do is we are going to return a promise.resolve, and then it will resolve with this mock jobs value. Okay, so let's look at our test. Oh, there's some error. Okay, so it's very funny because it says it passed, but there's still some error. So what happened? So what happened? There are a few errors here, but one thing that's happening now is because when we run this test, right, we render, and then after that we debug, and then the test finish. Okay, the test finish. What the React testing library is going to do is going to unmock our React component. Okay, but our API calls, it is by nature is a asynchronous operations. So what happened is we mount this component, and then we show its content. We use screen debug, and then after that we unmount it. Then only this asynchronous returns come back. And then when you come back, you try to do set state. Hey, the state is no longer there. That's why you error. So this is the first error. Let's fix this first error first. So what happened now is we want our test, right, somehow to wait. What we want to wait? We want to wait for this this get jobs operations returns value. Okay, so we want to wait. So the first thing we want to do this kind of waiting is we make our test function as a async function. Okay, then the second thing we can do is we want to have a promise that will resolve. So we want to await some promise that resolve when jobs come back. Okay, so we want to await a promise that will wait for the content to come back. So how do we have this kind of promise? Well, the React testing library screen actually have this such thing. Okay, we can do await find by text. Just now we have in the beginning we have get by text, right? Which will throw error when it cannot find something. Then after we have query by text, which will return you the element if it find it, else it will return null. Then we have third version of this query. It's called find by something, find by text, find by label text. So this is a version of the query that it will wait until it can find something. Okay, when it found it, then it will resolve the promise it's returning. So what we want is, because we know our all jobs, after it get the jobs, right, it will render the content. Okay. So I know this list group, right, it will actually show the label you pass to it. So we know the title will be visible. So what we're going to do here is we find by text, we'll find by this programmer. So we're going to do mock jobs, the first element, title. Okay, save. Okay, so our test still failed. Okay, so what's happening? Let's look at the error. So the error says, very long error. Uncaught exception. You should not use NavLink outside a router. Okay, so what's happening? The thing happen now is this all jobs, when you use this list group, is actually rendering a red router link. Okay, so red router, when you render a link, it will check whether you are wrapping your whole application with a red router. So now we are not doing. That's why I throw an error. So how to fix that? Well, instead of mocking the link, what we're going to do is I'm going to import a red router. So red router have many versions of router. It has browser router, it has hash router, it has memory router. Okay, so browser router and hash router, it actually update the URL when it renders something. But for our case, we are writing a test. This test environment doesn't have concept URL, so I'm going to use memory router. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this all jobs with my memory router. Okay, and then I save it. Okay, now my test pass. Okay, and my programmers and designer is showing. Okay, so this is how you test a component that have API calls. Technically, what you need to do is you need to mock the API calls, and then after that, you need to use this find by text to wait for the response to come back. Okay. Similarly, at the moment I also don't do any assertion now, right? So I'm going to do the assertion. So here it actually gives us the job. Right? Because find by text, you will wait for this element to be found, and then it will resolve it with the element it found. So I get the jobs. So I can expect jobs. Jobs to be. Okay. And I save. Okay. Now it passed. So one thing to note that this last assertion is technically not necessary, because if the job is null, right, this promise would never resolve. So your test will actually time out. The reason I write this is just for the sake of to make people clear what I'm doing here, because the find by text, sometimes you want to wait for it, then you want to do other assertion. So I just want to be very explicit what my test is verifying in this test. So in future, it's easier to know what I'm doing here. Okay, so this is how we write a test for component with API calls. If any of you at any point of time don't follow me, you can actually just ask your question. Today's a bit quiet. So now the last test I'm going to show you for today is how to test a component that is connected to Redux. So the test I'm going to show you is our login. Okay, this is our login. So our login is a very simple. You can type something here. Okay. Then if it's not valid, it will invalid. Okay. Then or I can sign up. Maybe I sign up. I put Malcolm key. Put malcolm@gmail.com. Okay. Success. Let me log out. Then you try to log in. So malcolm@gmail.com. In. I success. So this is an interaction I want to test, which is I come to this login page, I enter my email address, and then I click submit, if success, it should show me you are already logged in. Okay, so this is what I'm going to test now. The component that doing that is our login form, component. So this is our login form component. So our login form component actually is connected to our Redux store. Okay, so here I have map states, then you have map dispatch, and what it does is when it's mounted, then you have a track this email state, which you can actually type in, and then after that, when you click submit, you will call this login submit. So this login is actually a Redux chunk. So this Redux chunk, what we do is we will set the state as authenticating, which will give a status of loading. Then after that, we made API calls with the email. Then we'll return something. Then we will set it in the user. Then after that, this will resolve. If there's error, then we'll show the error state. So now I'm going to test this login form. So similarly, the first step is we create the test file. Login form.test.jsx. Okay, I changed the pattern to login form. Okay, now it fails because there's no test. So again, I'm going to import everything I need. Wait, I'm going to import React. I'm going to import login form. Okay, test login form. Render login form. And then we just screen debug. This is the first thing. So let's look at what we have rendered. Okay, it fails. Let's see what is the error. There are many things, but cannot find store in the context of connect, blah, blah, blah. So why is this error? So this is because for Redux, when you do a React Redux connect, right, it will actually make sure that you actually wrap your whole application in a Redux provider with a store. But now we don't do that. We just render the login form. That's why it throws error. So what do we do? Okay, just like React router, when they need a router, we give them a router. Now they want a provider with a Redux store. We give them a Redux store. Okay, so I'm going to give them a Redux store. So first, I'm going to import my root reducer. Oh, by the way, if this root reducer Redux store, this Redux store is confusing, maybe if you're not familiar with Redux, this will be confusing for you. So if you don't understand when you don't know Redux, is totally fine. Okay, need to learn Redux actually. So now we have a root reducer, then we need to create a store, right? So I'm actually using this Redux toolkit that actually give a utility to create a store, configure store. And then the lastly, we need React Redux. Okay. I see some questions in the comment. I'll get back to you later on after I finish this, because this is the last one. So we have put a provider, then we need to pass a store. Okay, so I put a store, configure store, and then pass a reducer, root reducer. Okay. Okay, this provider configure store, it's exactly the same thing that you will see in our index.js. You see, here we have a store, right? Provider store. Then here we configure store. It's exactly the same thing. It's just that previously in index.js we are set up for our whole application. Here we are set up for this test. Okay, yay! Now there's no more error just now. And look at our debug output. So first thing weird is the button is disabled, and we go up. Hey, we have a loading spinner. So why we have a loading spinner? Let's go back and see our login form. I'm going to split screen. So look at my login form. I have a spinner when it is submitting. Is submitting is when status is authenticating. Hey, I haven't authenticated anything. Why is there is authenticating? So the reason is being my Redux store is being set up initially with authenticating state. Okay. Why is that so? How I know? Well, because I write the code. I know lah. So when you write the code, you know how your Redux store behave. Okay. Now I write my code, I know how it behave. And when it's going to change to it's going to change this state is because in my app.js I have this init auth status. Okay. So this init auth status is a Redux tongue. What it does, right? You try to load the user from the session storage. Okay, you try to load the store from session storage, and if there's user there, it will store the user in Redux store. Else, it will just set the state as anonymous. So similarly, we are going to test this by actually using this Redux tongue. So I'm going to import from of actions this init of status. So we want to dispatch to our Redux store with this tongue, right? Well, just dispatch it. Okay. So first thing I realized, hey, there's no more loading spinner, right? Then our button is no longer disabled. Okay, so now we can really start putting the value into our form. So similarly, I'm going to import fireEvent. So I'm going to fireEvent change event. I want to fire change event into my input, which is here. Okay. So how do I fire event into there? There's no, of course I can do like document query selector input. Okay. But I want to write my test like how a user would. So the thing about my input, right, is I actually associate them correctly using the label for tag with my ID. So you look at my label, actually I have a for, which is with this generated ID, and then this ID is also being put into my input. So what I can do is I can do screen get by label tags email. Okay, so this will actually return me not the label but the input. And then after that, I want to simulate the change event. So the change event, if you write a bit React code, you will know change event, we always do the event target value, right? We extract the value from the event. So here we want to simulate a change event, we also need to put the same thing there. So we need to put target value. And then the value we want to put in, let's say this case is malcolm@gmail.com. And then, so I put in, let me just save it. Make sure my value is there. Okay, Malcolm@gmail is there. So the next thing I'm going to do is I want to click the button. So fireEvent, click. I want to click this button. Okay, I can click this button by using screen get by text. So I click the submit button. There's some error. So found multiple elements with the text login, blah, blah, blah. So the reason now there's error, the reason being here, you see at our form, top of the form, we have a legend login. And then at the bottom, we also have a login. Okay. So that's why this query throw error, because it's not sure which one you want. Of course, one thing it can do is, hey, when it found two, it just return you the first one. But it want you to be explicit because maybe initially there's only one element, right? So you click the button and then it works. Then sometimes down the road, you add another element with the same text. And then now you suddenly your test fail. And then you're not sure why, right? So this get by text, it will actually throw you error when you expect it to be one, then it actually found multiples. So that you want to avoid the case where this kind of scenario happen. So what do we do? The first thing we can do to fix this scenario is we can actually use what it suggests. We can do like get all by text. So get all by text will return all the elements in an array. Okay, and since the thing we want to click is the second item, so we got going to use index one. So this is the first thing we can do. But I don't want to do this because it's not very flexible. It's very easy to break because in future maybe someone to change a login text to something else, right? At the top, if you change something else, then it fails. Or someone add another login, then login text is this text also going to fail. So in those cases, what I suggest is we can add a special ID for the test. So a convention that is very popular is we add this special tag called data test ID. Okay, so I can call this data test ID submit login. So now instead of like get by text, which is can be break, I'm just get by this test ID. So how I'm going to do here is I'm going to get by test ID submit login. Okay. So now I will actually only get these elements, and then I will only click this element. So let the test run. Okay, the test pass. But we see a spinner. Okay, so this is similar to the case. Similar to the case of just now API calls just now. So we want to simulate the API calls, and so what we can do is we need to mock again. Okay, so this login API calls is actually in auth.service. Okay, so this auth.service, it has this login function, and then it will return a user. So I can mock this. So now speaking of mocking, there's few approach here. I can actually mock this API calls, right? I can mock this fetch JSON call, or I can actually mock the Tunker just now, the init of status just now. So which one should you mock? My answer for that is it actually depends on your use case. For my preference, I will mock because all my APIs call will store in some service file. So usually this is where I do a mocking. But you can go even further to mock fetch JSON. So what is the trade-off of different approach is because I realized in most of the time in my service file, right, I have this kind of like process environment files, process environment constants, and I don't want my test need to know what constant is using, so I just straight away mock the whole files. If I mock fetch JSON, I need to actually get these constants, and then I need to know, hey, when you're making this API calls to this endpoint, return something else, which I don't like lah. But of course, you can disagree. So now I'm going to mock the login call. So let me import. I always import it from the auth services. login. Okay. Similarly, something we want to mock, so I'm going to rename it as login mock, and then we call Jest mock of dot service. Okay. Then here login mock, what I'm going to do is I'm going to login mock implementation once. So I'm going to resolve. Okay. So what we want to resolve. So just now, so all those mocking, right, is a bit kind of annoying because you need to actually see what you're mocking. That's why for me, I always try to avoid mocking if can, but API calls we should mock. So the login actually return a user 0, but I don't know what's user. If we use TypeScript here, it's very easy because TypeScript tell you what data you're expecting. You can actually know what to mock. But here we don't. Too bad we don't have TypeScript. But I'm the one that write the code, so I know what to mock. So I'm going to return a name, welcome. Okay. So similar to just now we have API call. We should make our test function as a sync function, and then we'll await. Oh, we are await. We will await the things in the screen that allow us to know, hey, the API call has come back. So what is the text? Well, if you go to login form, when it is successful, you will see this, right? You are already logged in. So I'm going to copy this and put here. So this will be my success message. Okay. So I can expect success message not to be now. Okay. So let's save it. Okay. Now it passed. So technically now we have finished all our tests. The last thing I want to show you is a little bit of a small pro tips when writing React tests. So first thing is, just now I have render with React Router. I have render with Redux Store. In an application that like this, right, you would have many places that actually need to do this. Okay. So a very common utility that I create is I will have inside my utility folder. In this project, it will be under the lib. I will create a file called test.util.js. Okay, so test.util.js would create abstraction for these cases. Okay, so I'm going to import. I'm going to copy this thing, but I'm going to remove all this. So I want to create abstraction is called render with router and state management. Okay, you can call it other name, but I always prefer explicit. So render with router and state management. Okay, so in here we are going to do all this. Okay, but previously we are going to render a login form which is specific for test. Here we are going to render the UI. Previously we dispatch a specific action. Now I'm not going to do that. I'm going to abstract this away. So I'm going to abstract this render router and state management actually accept a second parameter, which have this initial actions array. So I'm going to look through these initial actions. For each action, we're going to store dispatch action. Then of course we to be safe, we want to return what we do here. So I'm going to spread what is being rendered, and also I want to return the store. So the purpose of this is when people use this function, then they actually get the Redux store that we have created, so they can manually dispatch action or do other things they want, and then they also get everything the render returns. So can remove all this. Okay, so I have render with state management and router. So in here, I no longer need to wait. I think this is going to fail because my import is wrong. So I'm going to import from modules reducer. So in login form test, I no longer need to do all those manual Redux thing. I'm going to just import from the test util. It's not coming. Oh yeah, another level. Test util, and then I'm going to render with router and state management. So here I'm going to render with that, and initial actions. I'm going to provide this init or status. So all this can be gone. It's also no longer needed because it's part of our render with router and state management. So yeah, then we make our tests much easier to read now because those are just small details. And then our test will still pass, I hope. Okay, yeah. So that's all I want to show you today. So if you have other questions or you have other issues, please ask. I try to answer. Now I'm going to answer those questions that has been asked in the channel. So the first question is by Andrew. So very general questions. How do you check test coverage? How much coverage do you normally accept before you consider the project to be sufficiently tested? So first question is how do you check for coverage? So the good thing for test coverage is actually Jest out of the box. It actually have report to do that. So I'm straight away going to demo right away because I already configure. So look at the package JSON. Here now I have a discrete test CI. So I just pass extra one flag called coverage, and this coverage actually will help me generate a coverage report. I'm going to just run yarn test CI. Okay, we'll let it run. So it will run all the tests that we had created today. Then it will generate a coverage report. Okay, and now the coverage report will be in your project folder. There's a coverage folder. So there's a LCOV report, and then it's all in HTML and CSS file. Let us open it. So this is how it looks like. Okay, it shows you all the files in this project and the coverage for each of it, and then it will show you what are the statements that has been covered, branches, which is your logic if else, then function, and then lines. So you can actually drill into each individual file. So for example, I can go in here. No, the one I want to show you is the component that we have tested now. So just now we have jobs, all jobs, right? Yeah, all jobs. So you can see that, hey, these all jobs are pretty well covered. but this line is not covered. Okay, so which is expected because we never test the exception scenario. So we should write a test to cover this. Yeah, so this is the coverage questions. Then how much coverage do you normally accept? Okay, so for me, actually this is a hard question because many times when we give an answer for this, right, you will see people start hacking around these numbers because it's not hard for me to get a test coverage, but testing nothing. Okay, so just now I show you the snapshot test, right? The snapshot test is snapshot a specific string. I can actually snapshot test my whole application, and it will say, "Oh, my application is covered, but actually testing nothing." So yeah, this is what really happened. But if you insist, right, my suggestion is at around 80%, because for me 80% is not hard to actually reach. Even even if we only cover the positive scenario, if you use the test practice that I just showed you, like minimum mocking, and then try to really test the whole flow except the API calls, it's very easy to get 80%. But don't reach for 100%, because in practical, many times when people reach for 100%, they will try to change their code to make it very easy to test. Like, hey, if I don't do mock, if I have some case where my private methods is not being covered, so you want 100%, they're going to export the private methods, and yeah, it actually for me it makes your code worse. So yeah, for me it's more than 80%, but definitely not 100%. So then we go to the next question. Which database you have used in this app? So this app is kind of like a demo app. So the database, there's no database, but it seems like there's a database, right? Because I use a very useful library for doing this kind of pet project. It's called JSON server. I'm going to share the link in the channel. So JSON server is you can create a JSON file. Based on a JSON file, it will expose different APIs. Yeah, it's kind of fun. So you can create a post, you create a JSON file with your post, and then you put it array. Then you will have an endpoint called post, and then when you give you a whole array. Then you can put like post slash one. You will get the post with ID 1. Yeah, so this is what I use for this application. Nothing really useful. Just for those demo. Next question is, do you have any good resource to recommend on React testing library? I got started with it a while ago. I realized I only learned about 20% of it. For me, the good resource is the creator of the React testing library, which is Kenzie Dots. So follow his blog and his Twitter. But if you really want a deep dive, the one that I would recommend is his course, but it's a bit is paid. Okay, so he has created a course called testingjavascript.com. Share the link. As you can see, I actually subscribe lah. Yeah, but I don't pay for I don't pay myself. I ask my boss to sponsor. Yeah, so yeah, he actually walked through what I teach you today and more than that. So yeah, this will be the resource I recommend, or you can come to my webcast. I'm continue sharing what I had learned from there, and also the extra things from my experience. So it seems like there's no more question in the channel. So I think that's all for today. So if you like this video, please like and share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and or follow our KL React Facebook page. So I will see you next time, and yeah, have a nice day. Bye.